That is lucky we won.
Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. First on the agenda is to approve the minutes of December 2nd, 2024 as written.
I'll so move. I'll second.
Moved by Meeks, second by McCurry. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Next is our miscellaneous motions. Move to authorize Director Chairman to sign 8 tax abatements in the amount of $3,967.08. I went through them earlier and kind of looked at them.
Yeah, they're just mostly changing values and sold and whatnot, so.
I felt like they all had a good explanation with them.
Yeah.
So I'll move.
I'll second.
Moved by Thompson, seconded by Hugoden. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Upon recommendation of the Coffee County Clerk, authorize Director Chairman to sign notice to Key West Township Board for a 2025 Cereal Mart Beverage License, Travel Centers America, located at 2775 US 75, Lebo, Kansas.
So move.
I'll second. Moved by Hugoden, seconded by Knight. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Next one, move to recommend by the Coffee County Clerk to authorize Director Chairman to sign notice for Key West Township Board for 2025 Cereal Malt Beverage License for Conoco Travel Centers / Cedar Valley Investments, doing business as Fuel Expresso 11, located at 2754 US 75 Northwest, Lebo, Kansas.
I'll move. Sorry.
No.
Go ahead.
Moved by McCurry,
I'll
seconded by Thompson. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye, motion passes. Next, move to authorize Director Chairman to sign Coffee County payroll notice for Jordan Shepherd, Jail Sergeant, promotion, wage classification from 30-3 to 35-9, a wage from $19.87 to $23.18, effective 11/3 of 24. Is that the right date?
I don't know. It's not here, so do you wanna wait on that?
Yeah, we'll table that. Date seems off.
See, I don't know, I need to have a copy of this.
Another.
When does pay go in?
I don't know that yet.
Okay.
I have to look, I have
Yeah,
to
we
check
don't
with
have a
Sherry
sheet.
and see if she's got anything. I don't think I even have a sheet on it,
Normally we have a sheet.
unless it's in that.
Payroll voucher.
Okay, well, let me find out, and maybe I'll tell you.
Question on the dates. All right. 9:05, River City Construction.
Morning.
Morning.
In front of you is our update from our monthly meeting with Sheriff and Wade and Goldberg, and then our 5-week look at schedule. Weather pushed our windows and our metal parapet flashing and the roof last week. Looking to get some of that done with a little better weather this week. Other than that, weather didn't really hinder us much, just kept us inside more. Masons are working on some interior walls, some showers in the pod or dormitory style housing, and then building the walls in between, dividing the pods for the cell areas. Trying to get those closed up and get the masons out of here, buy us back some room on the exterior for storage. The steel erectors have been inside. We have now completed pod F, the metal wall panels behind the pod. They are putting the bracing in behind that one, and then they're gonna follow the poly jail out as they finish those walls, metal wall panels. Other than that, rough end, ductwork, and plumbing is finishing down on the south side of level 2 and working their way onto level 1. They're in booking and intake in the kitchen area. Electrical is following them out, finishing up on 2 and working their way down. Sheetrock has started on level 2 as of last week. We have a majority of, a little over half of the sheetrock up in the county attorney's office, and they're gonna chase that down to the south side, work their way down to level 1. That's the biggest changes, I guess, this past week or past month, past week, has been the drywall. It's gonna turn white pretty quick, and not talking snow. Looking pretty good. Got the heaters on last week, now it's 65, and everybody's complaining about the
It's
heat.
too hot now. Well, it's either too hot or too cold.
Right.
Can't make everybody
Can't,
happy.
exactly.
I know when we toured it last week, I noticed that the elevator, we want to say the elevator is not in there. I mean,
Correct.
there's enough room to get all that.
Yes, they bring it in, actually, in a lot of pallets,
Oh, okay.
and then install it in place.
Oh, okay, okay.
It'll be, I think they're scheduled 20th or 21st of January, so they'll be on site with both of them. And they, when they come, they,
Do their job and roll on.
yes, and everything's gotta be perfect for them. That's how elevators roll. They get what they want, and you don't bother them. We did have, as you can see in the packet, we have a pay app sent in. We are gonna sit down and go over it this week, as long as everybody's schedules allow. It's a little less than last month. We're just over 2 million, and, so we'll review it and hopefully have it in front of you next week, is the goal.
And then 3 change orders.
Correct. 3 change orders. I don't remember the numbers or what they entail.
23 or 24, 25, and 26.
I think it's 24, 25, and 26. So we'll sit down and go over all those and iron anything out that, make sure all our ducks are in a row.
Okay. Very well.
Call on, and maybe I've asked this, on the near miss incidents one, is that the explanation to the right there?
Yes.
I was just curious if that was.
Yes, that was when we had the little tip with the weight on the front of it. But everybody's been doing pretty good. Reminder of the high vis and safety glasses at
Yeah, that
times,
was way
but
back
other than
in
that,
August.
yes, just the one.
Yeah, okay, fine.
Very good.
That's one thing we definitely push. That's one thing you can't skimp on.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So-
Anything else?
Nope.
Perfect, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I forgot to give you these.
Oh, that's all right.
Thank you.
Next, lobbyist Tim Johnson, contract renewal.
Good morning, Commissioners. It's that time of year. I just wanted to update everybody. Was able to attend the KNRC, went down, and I was very impressed with their meeting. I wanted to touch on, I was watching and looking, and there was 3 other counties that commissioners came over, went to it, and I was able to talk to all 3 of them, Lynn, Greenwood, and Anderson. And I talked to them after it, and they was very impressed and was looking into joining them. So I wanted to point that out. One topic they hit on, and I wanted to pointed out and update the commissioners on was Tracy brought up the resolution that we had done on the EPA and got started with Tom Hoogan kind of prodding me and getting me going on it. We was able to get the state attorney general, and he ended up joining with, I believe there was 9 other counties that went ahead and signed a resolution. With that information, Tracy and Sean Tassett, commissioner from, I believe, the city of Dodge City, they went to Chris Kobach, and they ended up joining a lawsuit with, I believe they said 11 other states. Then they ended up flying to Washington, D.C., Tracy and Sean, and talked to several representatives on the EPA meat processing rules. I just wanted to point that out. This year I've went over 5,200 miles in my car representing our issues in the state of Kansas on the east side. With that in mind, I'm here to see if you would be interested in renewing my contract for 2025.
Well, I've said before that Tim's the bird dog for our county and the residents of Coffee County to help enlighten us with what's coming down the pipeline. He somehow can sniff it out and find it. I think he sleeps with one eye open. If not, he should. But I feel from what we've had in the past as far as lobbyists, I feel that the value is certainly worth it in my eyes.
And I, on the other hand, I'm not going to support the position again as last year. I don't see the value, and nothing against you. I think you're doing exactly what you intend to do. I just don't see the value for Coffee County. We have lobbyists in Topeka right now for the state, for our commissions. I haven't changed from last year, and that's my stand, Kim. I'm just not going to support that position.
All right.
We've got a motion here. Move to approve lobbying services agreement with Timothy E. Johnson, being lobbyist for Coffee County at $1,500 per month, January 1st, 2025, and ending in December 31st, 2025.
I'll move.
I'll second. Moved by Thompson, seconded by Knight. Any discussion?
You know, I worked with lobbyists when I was at the elevator. And the lobbyists that we've worked with, of course, is all in the farm side of it. It's all fertilizer and chemicals, you name it. And we work with lobbyists. And I'm not sure where we would be in the farm marketing place if we didn't have lobbyists working for us. And I understand Steve here very well. You know, you got to have good people doing that work for you. And it's difficult to analyze what the individual you have retained for lobbyists. It's difficult to analyze all of it. But in this situation, Tim, you've fully got my support. And I know you spent a huge amount of hours, $1,500 a month. You're probably not on the positive side when it comes to money. And so it's difficult to review all that. But I'll certainly go along with the motion that's in place before us. Definitely support it.
Any other discussion? Hearing no other discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Thank-
Motion passes.
Thank you very much, Commissioners.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
If you need me to do anything, just let me know.
Okay.
I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Do you wanna just back up that motion?
Okay, yeah, the motion that we tabled of the pay for the
Yeah,
jail.
it is, that date is correct,
Okay.
as they're on the 28-day pay cycle,
Oh, okay.
so,
So the day would be the,
that. Yeah.
yeah, I know, yeah.
All right, I'll reread the motion. Move to authorize Director Chairman to sign Coffee County payroll notice for Jordan Shepherd, jail sergeant promotion, wage classification 30-3 to 35-9, wage from 1987 to 2318, effective 11/3/2024. That was signing up.
I'll move.
I'll second that.
Moved by McCurry, seconded by Thompson. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye, motion passes.
I put that motion down further, because we tabled it there, so it's down further now,
Okay.
you'll see it near the bottom.
We're going ahead of schedule. We've got a 9:30. That's executive session, correct? No?
Well, about 40 minutes to an hour, there's a PowerPoint presentation that they're gonna bring. It'll be in the open, and then depending on, they said they may request an executive session to cover some of the financial components.
For the 9:30 Economic Development Director.
Oh, for that one? I thought you were talking about 10
No.
o'clock. I can give you an update. If you remember, last week, Melissa Landis was here from Empower House. I asked for specifics on Coffee County. So, females, residents, 6 women from Coffee County, 1 in 2022, 3 in 2023, 2 in 2024. Applications, besides the residents, 3 applications in '22 and another in 2024. On the male side, 4 applications from Coffee County, none became residents. 1 had too many behavioral issues in prison, 1 went to prison, another was accepted from prison but did not come, and a possible interview in the future. So, I think as it relates to Coffee County and the support that Coffee County provides to Empower House, I mean, it is a beneficial program for what it does all across the board, but specifically for Coffee County. I think it's important to note that, comparatively speaking, even those numbers, in my opinion, based on the number of high-level drug cases, and when I say high-level, I'm not talking about misdemeanor marijuana, I'm talking about possession of meth, fentanyl, heroin, cocaine. Those type of cases are usually the population that end up in that program. And the most important component of that program is they hold each other accountable, which, someone like me going up and saying you shouldn't do this, that, or the other, it's not going to be as well received as somebody who's been there, who fights that addiction day to day. I went to, years ago, a drug court training in San Diego when I was part of the team that helped start the drug court in the 31st Judicial District in Allen County. And they had an individual there who talked about drug addiction this way. And you're always an addict, as they said, but you have to compare it. The comparison they gave is start out everybody without an addiction problem. Their brain's like a cucumber. You take a cucumber and you put it in a jar of vinegar. What do you get?
Pickled cucumber.
A pickle. And once you get a pickle from a cucumber, you can never go back and change it back to a cucumber. The composition of that cucumber is always going to be a pickle, and that's how they give you the analogy of addiction. Your brain and chemistry changes forever. So you have to make the choices to be around the right people and to say no, and that's easier said than done for a lot of these people.
Very good explanation.
Yes, that does.
No.
Our interview is downstairs, am I correct?
Yes.
Well, you got 10 minutes.
I don't know if you're interested or not. Currently, there's 22 being held in the Coffee County Jail. All 22 are Coffee County cases, and then we have 3 being housed in Lynn County as overflow. Obviously, I'm not going to go into the details about who's being held for what, but that's just the day and time we're in.
Yeah, we haven't had any numbers of what the jail had for quite some time. Still pretty much full.
It fluctuates depending on what type of offense. Obviously, your run-of-the-mill traffic offense isn't gonna, the value of holding somebody in jail on a driving while suspended isn't there unless they miss court date after court date after court date. If that happens, then they have a history of failure to appear, and if they're let out, then if the past is any indicator of the future, they may not follow a court order to show up in the future. But your inmate population, if it's handled right, should be higher level crimes, either drug distribution, sex offenses, violent crimes, those type of things, where people who have a history of failing to follow court orders in some shape, form, or capacity. And I think if you look at what's listed in the paper, you get an idea of those should be the crimes that you see.
What's the normal number as far as people getting out housed elsewhere? Is that, 3, is that on the top side or bottom side, or?
I think it fluctuates. It depends on what your inmate population is. Right now, my assumption is that they're farming out because they need the space. If you bring somebody in and then, the classification system, you have to hold people separately depending on what classification they are.
Okay.
So right now you're just in that.
That's what determines that.
Yeah.
I was just curious.
It's up to you.
So these people that are, of the 22 that we have,
I'm out. I don't give a shit.
those,
Well, I don't think so.
need, what am I trying to say? They eligible for bail or sizable bail, or why are they?
The majority of them
Movement.
have a bond and can't make bond, either it's too high, and then there's a number of them, several of them that are on what I'll call loan from the Department of Corrections for some reason, and they're not eligible for a bond.
I'd say.
So we have quite the variety of inmates that are in for a number of different things.
So we probably have at least a cell or two that has to remain open, so you've got somewhere to put somebody when you arrest someone, I would assume.
Correct.
I didn't know what the total capacity was.
Gotta have vacancy.
Yeah, I think if I remember right, if they put what they call boats on the floor. Do you remember that terminology? Boats on the floor, which are basically makeshift beds. The capacity is 24.
I see.
So they're right at,
So they're pretty full.
they're right at capacity. So if they go out and they arrest multiple individuals this week, let's say, and the inmate population doesn't change, then they're gonna have to start farming out more.
Okay. Thank you.
There's Rhonda. Yep, we might as well go ahead and go. We'll do our 9:30 Economic Development Director, candidate number 5, second interview, executive session, the board, Rhonda Truelove and Counselor Wade Bowie for 20 minutes. Motion?
And the applicant, right?
And the applicant, yeah.
Is Brendan there?
Yeah, I know. I'm
Okay.
Well, I should say.
Yes, I'll move by Curry.
I'll say.
Go ahead, seconded by Thompson. Any discussion?
And you said that was non-elected personnel under the Kansas
Oh,
Open
no, I
Meeting
didn't
Act.
say that. Okay.
What you said.
Non-elected personnel to interview the candidate as you indicated, which is an acceptable basis to go into executive session under Kansas Open Meetings Act.
Okay. What he said.
I still move.
Moved by Curry, seconded by Thompson. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We'll enter at 9:30 for 20 minutes. Oh,
Are we ready, Jesse?
yes, we're in. Oh, I flipped the switch.
Okay. Oh, we're waiting on, okay, I didn't see that.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning, how are you?
Doing well.
Pulling out all the people.
Great to see you. Good to see you.
Apologize for this, the lack of room. Maybe one of these days we'll.
There's
Yeah,
that.
Cooper County was in the mood to fix that, right? If Cooper County was in the money to fix that, right?
This is sized for the 3-hour, for the 2-hour commission meetings. It's not sized for the all-day meeting.
That's right.
Right.
Good point.
Before we all sign in.
Yeah. Getting near the bottom.
Thank you, sir. Not completely necessary.
Well,
But I appreciate it.
trying to help you.
I appreciate it.
Right here.
How we doing, buddy?
Morning.
Oh.
Top one? Plug in power before.
Unplug this one. You don't need this one, right? Oh, that's the, do we need that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, yes. Please.
The green book,
Need a green book or?
the green book. But I can.
Did you get the update from the executive session?
No, I have not. Last executive session, no action taken at this time. Is that a fair statement, Mr. Bowie?
Yes.
Things been taken out of that. That's all I got.
There,
Oh, there.
it's right there.
Oh, sorry. One 149.24.
I think we had a newer one for 15.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll just
That,
put that.
yeah, that wouldn't have the April. What's your son? Break it off a little.
I want to make sure
Right there it is.
Yeah.
the audio's turned up on this, just.
Hey, who is, someone about the green.
Yeah.
Do you want to watch some front?
Do you want me to, I can get you a copy to sign.
No, it's all right.
It's a little gnarly, so if it's working, that's. Oh, wonder why it's looking like that.
There you go.
Catch up.
Okay, we're at our 10 o'clock. Wade?
Yep, I'm past it, so I didn't know who was gonna show up. I knew there was gonna be an update, and I'll let Howell introduce himself and who he has with him, so that everybody can kind of know who's here, why they're here, and what role they play in the CHIPS application process.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. Thank you guys for your time today. Again, my name is Howell Canchola. I'm with Burns & McDonnell. And as a refresher, we are your program manager, program management agency agreement that was executed with Coffee County. The primary purpose of that and the initial task that was authorized was for pre-development support services relative to the KSMC Industrial Park on developing a pre-development checklist and a development agreement that can be aligned for execution on future developments, and coordination and collaboration with the anchor tenants or anchor developer on the private sector side, being TEM, Trusted Electronic Materials, with the intentions of developing and building a fabrication facility for semiconductor manufacturing. So working with ICS Communications and team. So today's update, I'll be providing an intro and a bit of a closing, and here to field any questions as well. Carl Wyatt, as part of that TEM, ICS, and consultant team is here as well. So we're the two that are primarily presenting here and fielding any questions. So today's purpose was really to provide an update. So in the pre-development support services task that was authorized, we did put together a set of deliverables that had a development agreement that was outlined with general terms. And that development agreement was primarily qualified with the condition of satisfaction from the private sector side on evidence and proof of funds, as well as the preliminary memorandum of terms or award of federal funding, which is also part of the financial plan and financial strategy for the development. So those were anticipated to have been accomplished by the September timeframe. We don't control the government, right? The CHIPS program office and the issuance of those fundings. So here we are. We were in anticipation of the election year, so we knew things would be interesting. So primarily today, we're here to provide an update. Now that the election is behind us, we know, what the current administration and the new administration, who they are, and what strategies may come in play, what pros and cons or actions there are. As well as today, there's has yet to be an issuance of a preliminary memorandum of terms. So we're at a post-election, point where we felt it's good to provide an update and to share some of the strategies towards those efforts that are still working in progress on securing the private sector proof of funding, as well as the CHIPS program office issuance of a PMT on the road towards federal funding. So with that, I'll go ahead and introduce Carl Wyatt and allow him to walk through the presentation that we have today.
Thank you.
Good to see you all again. I think the last time I was here was in June, and I'd like to be able to share an update to let you know where things are as of today, and also give you a perspective of why I think that this project, in spite of the delay, is still critical not only to Coffee County and Kansas, but to the U.S., and hopefully I'll share some data with you that'll help you to understand that. If you'll go to that next slide. So in the middle of the Second World War, the president had asked Dr. Vannevar Bush to come up with a strategy for moving American technology forward. There were a lot of things that surprised the United States out of what Germany had done, and the idea was to establish a leadership path that would do two things. Not only provide a steady leadership globally in terms of technologies, not just for the war or war efforts, but for commercial development. And Dr. Bush's view at the time was that this had to happen if we were going to continue to lead the planet in terms of technology. And the only way to do that was to release the full creative power of all Americans. I'm going to show you a video of what has happened in Taiwan, and it also will give you a good picture of what we're trying to get built here in Coffee County. So I'm going to play the video. Some of the language won't be clear, but there are subtitles that you'll be able to read, and I think you'll find it insightful. What you see in this video is very close to what it is that is intended to be built here in Coffee County. So you'll click that, and hopefully it'll play. About 5 minutes.
Clean, smooth and new, 12 inches across. It's spun at high speed. A few drops of a UV-sensitive liquid are enough to coat the wafer evenly. And then, to the photolithography machine. It's a bit like the way photos used to be printed in a darkroom, but in a machine costing $100 million, and with the accuracy to match.
60 years ago, a transistor we are able to see using humans' naked eyes. Today, the size is in fact like almost 10,000 times smaller than a human hand. That's huge amount of innovations, especially coming from photolithography, in order for us to print or define such small patterns onto the wafers.
Inside the machine, the wafer is exposed to UV light, projected through a mask carrying the design like a film negative. This light optically prints the circuit design onto the wafer, causing exposed areas to solidify, while unexposed ones are etched away. This process happens time and time again, as the circuitry is built up in layers. And with the pathways in the surface measuring just a few nanometers, the tiniest bit of contamination could disrupt the entire production line. The staff may be in their bunny suits, but the best way to keep the chance of contamination to a minimum is to keep the people out.
That's not a cartoon, that's the actual
To
fact.
do that, you need to automate whatever you can. Getting machines to move the wafers about the factory floor not only keeps humans away from them, but it also optimizes delivery efficiency. Loading machines take the printed wafers and place them in specialized containers. These containers are then hoisted up into little buggies running along overhead rails. With all this high-speed traffic, the little vehicles are covered in sensors so they can detect one another and regulate their speed if they get too close. There are thousands of them in this mega factory, and together they travel nearly 400,000 kilometers every day, the equivalent of circling the planet 10 times.
最早期的半导体是由人把晶圆搬上机台，那这样子的话，人其实在操作机台上它是有数量的限制。现在透过远端连线，然后 MHS 系统自动收送货，那人的操作机台可以从10台变成现在的30台，甚至还以上。这个是以前没有办法做到的事。
Altogether, there are thousands of huge machines on the factory floor. And as expensive and reliable as they are, they still need constant monitoring. Fortunately, for purposes of keeping out contamination, this can be done remotely by a remarkably small crew located at the far end of the factory.
我们的工厂目前，如果是以单位数来做计算，接近5000个单位。可是我们一个班，我们就靠70到90位同仁来完成这件事。所以人基本上在半导体业界来讲，已经从以前的劳力操作，变成要知识逻辑上的判断。
Wolfchuk is in charge of this crew. They have to make sure that the 100 or so processes inside the clean area are all running to plan. They have at their disposal over 50,000 sensors and 150 million control points. This results in an astonishing flow of data, reaching up to 30 petabytes every single day.
That factory is owned by an American company, Micron, that is based in Boise, Idaho. About the middle of my 74 years, Taiwan had essentially nothing in terms of semiconductor manufacturing. As of today, they produce 60% of the semiconductors that are sold worldwide. 60%. It's a nation that's about 1/6 the size in terms of the area, 1/6 the size of Kansas, with about 24 million people. Micron is not the only company that is building semiconductors in Taiwan. Within the last few months, TI has announced that they're going to be building gallium nitride, same type of gallium nitride that we want to build here, also in Japan. They want to quadruple their American production, but in Japan. If you go to the next slide, I'm going to talk about the status of the funding. The investment risk, there's an investment that Coffee County has made, and with every investment there is a risk. We'll talk about the standing of the CHIPS Act, where is it today, and then what are the leadership prospects and paths to success for this initiative. And the next topic is probably one of the most challenging. I'm going to talk about the project risk and risk management. And then finally, Joel is going to come back and give some details on some of the excellent work that Burns and McDonnell has done with regard to the site plan. So this is a picture of the site last winter in the bottom on the left. And the factory building that you're seeing there is very similar to the one that we just saw in Taiwan. So what's inside that building is much of what you saw in the video. One change with regard to the plan there, you'll see that that's TEM1. The original plan was to build TEM1, 2, 3, and 4. What we've done is to make some changes in the plan so that with the way that we're looking at building TEM1 now, and then TEM2 by 2032, will actually produce 4 times the original volume of capacity in that plant. If you go to the next slide. So in terms of the ICS commitment, in February of this year, ICS announced a significant financial commitment. It was to the tune of $10 million. That was to be made by ICS. That was a commitment that was made to come alongside the commitment, the investment that Coffee County has made. As of today, Jesse Russell, who was to have been here today, sent a note on Friday saying that he's still working hard to pull that money together. And hopefully we'll get some news today with regard to the update. But there have been a lot of todays between February and December. If you go to the next slide. This map, to give you a feel for why I think this has to be done and why Coffee County is the right place to do it. All the little dots are showing places of activity in the U.S. where there is some form of semiconductor manufacturing. Not everybody is doing wafer scale manufacturing, which is what we saw in the previous video. A lot of folks are doing packaging and so on. Not much, because of all the packaging. This is if you make the wafers and you build them up layer by layer, kind of like a layer cake. And then you test the wafers and then you singulate them. You cut them into pieces. You take those chips and you have to get them on a printed circuit board. That's a packaging activity. Again today, where packaging technology, just like semiconductor technology, originated here, we do about 1% of the packaging that's done worldwide. So as a nation, the United States does about 1%. And I want you to keep Vannevar Bush's dream in the forefront. What he said was that if we don't put as many Americans as we can, get them engaged, we will not be able to sustain a leadership position. And that's what we're seeing. That's really the whole purpose of the CHIPS Act. So the CHIPS Act is not to sort of start something new, it's to regain something that was lost. We had leadership, we made mistakes, and as a result of those mistakes, we lost it. And now the goal is to get it back, but to get it back, there's an investment required, and investment means risk. Now, it's a risk that Taiwan took, by the way, 35, 40 years ago, because they were simply out of the game when it came to next generation technology, and there was no way that they could survive after having broken away from China. So for those of you that remember your high school history, Mao Zedong had launched a communist initiative in China. There was a group led by General Chiang Kai-shek who disagreed with that perspective. They fought, they lost, they left China and went to a little island, Taiwan. And that little island, because it has so much semiconductor technology leadership in the world today, is an island that China has to get back. So what about Coffee County? Of the $244 billion of semiconductor revenue in 2024, that's less than $1 out of every 2,400 comes from the U.S. Less than $1 of the, 2,400 comes from Kansas. So $244 billion in Kansas right now, the semiconductor manufacturing is about 100 million. And so that ratio is just about 2,400 to 1. On a global scale, it gets worse. Instead of it being 2,400 to 1, Kansas is like 6,300 to 1. That's where Kansas is today. Even worse, by 2032, with the way that the semiconductor market is projected to grow, Kansas is going to be at 20,000 to 1. So had this investment not been made, there would have been no way for Kansas taxpayers to take a seat at the head of the table with regard to semiconductor technology, not just in the U.S., but worldwide. So that's the risk that the Board of Commissioners has taken. And without that risk, it's guaranteed that Kansas would be out of the game and would stay out of the game. So that fifth point, and I'm perhaps preaching to the choir, or at least some members of the choir, I thought that was a necessary investment. Right now, Kansas is losing about 16,000 of its college graduates a year. They want to work elsewhere because they don't see the same technology future, the same quality of life, the same prediction, again, that Vannevar Bush made, which was that if we're going to have a progressive quality of life, the same way that Taiwan has developed it. So you have to remember that Taiwan was further behind where Kansas is today when they got started. So they've gone from way in the back to way out front, and they're not looking back. Based on that technology that you saw today in terms of that fab, they have that working today in fabs all over Taiwan. In order to protect the taxpayers' right to get a chance to lead, to participate in the leadership, this risk had to be taken. And then finally, it's a risk that's important to contribute to America's regaining its leadership in semiconductors. Had that not happened, then the likelihood of our catching up, it's actually getting worse if there is no investment, because the rest of the world is not sitting still. If you go to the next slide. This is a picture that we showed before a few months ago, back in June. Right now, gallium nitride is the principal so-called compound semiconductor. So when you, in the video, what you saw was silicon, and they were looking at 12-inch wafers. The plan in Coffee County is to start with 8-inch wafers, but we're going to build that site to accommodate 12-inch wafers. Because even since the time that the application was submitted in June of 2023, Infineon in Germany just a few months ago announced that they already have 12-inch gallium nitride wafers. There are others who are developing 12-inch wafers, and we suspect that given the pace of progress in Asia, our expectation is that unless there is a competitive response from the U.S., we're going to find ourselves just as far behind in gallium nitride. So it's used in all of our jet fighters. You look at that squadron there in the upper right. One of the points that I wanted to make with this is that you're familiar with drones. Those are unmanned, unwoman vehicles, okay, fighting machines. We're making stealth jets that'll be unmanned. There'll be a squad leader that'll be a manned flight, and there will be a squadron of unmanned. Well, why does that matter? In the lower left, you see those gentlemen standing there on the ridge. Every piece of material on that slide, all the weaponry, whether it's air, sea, ground, or satellite, all of it uses gallium nitride for radar systems, communications, ballistic missiles controls, etc. But the other thing that's happening is that in the world today, there are 50 plus initiatives to develop humanized robots. And those robots, we believe, are going to actually require gallium nitride for fine motor control, for intelligent operation, coupled with AI. And if you look at some of the robots that have been developed to date, you'll be shocked at how far along they are. So instead of having human beings taking bullets, you're going to have robots. And they'll have human squad leaders. Some of those squad leaders will be remote. Some of them will be in the air. Some of them will be governed or controlled by satellites. And this is and much of that equipment that you saw in the factory, that's the Micron factory in Taiwan, you notice that one of the statements made was they're developing the technology to reduce the number of people required. Because right now, what you used to do with 30 people or more, you can do with one now in these automated factories. Next slide, please. So this is where we are headed. We want to start with 8-inch wafers. We have a roadmap to go from 8-inch to 12. Well, why does that matter? Well, it turns out that if you look at a 12-inch wafer, you get about 2.3 times the number of die per wafer. And one of the partners we're working with, ASML, which is a partner that's providing equipment worldwide for semiconductor manufacturing, has already told me personally, just a few weeks ago, we've been in Washington, that they're developing technology to automate the manufacture of 12-inch gallium nitride, which is one of the reasons why we want to build the physical factory for 12. The initial equipment that goes inside will be for 8, and then TEM2, when it's built, will be built for 12-inch, not just from the standpoint of the building itself, but for all the tools that go inside. If we were to try to put 12 or 8-inch tools, or 12-inch tools rather, in the fab today, the cost would go up by about $3 billion. Next slide. So you remember that bottom line there on the previous slide was that this factory would be 100% U.S. owned. It would be the largest in terms of capacity gallium nitride manufacturing capability, bigger than all of the other gallium nitride manufacturing capability combined in the U.S., here in Coffee County. That's the plan. Here are some of the partners. You know that Burns and McDonnell is here today. Also, Trane is here today. And I mentioned ASML. That's a big one. Let me just talk about a couple of the partners. Excite there is the company that's actually going to build the factory. Not just the shell itself, but they're going to put all the equipment inside. And in fact, one of the things that they've been hammering us for the last 9 months is, hey, Carl, you need to tell us what your gallium nitride process is going to be, because without a process, we can't buy the tools. And if we can't get the tools, then you can't start manufacturing. So having a process is paramount. Excite is number one on the planet in terms of building semiconductor factories today. ASML is number one on the factory. So you remember in the video, they showed a picture of, they started with a wafer, they spin down like a photoresist. And you remember that they have a camera that is essentially exposing the photoresist. That's how it is that you define the integrated circuits. And you'll notice that the machine was sort of stepping and repeating. It would take a photo, move to the next side, take another photo, and so on. The reason for that is because that's how it is that you build a bunch of chips on the wafer itself, and you build up layer after layer by repeating that process. And those layers are what give you your integrated circuit. Well, ASML is number one on the planet on defining the dimensions of the, remember the gentleman was saying that today if you look at a transistor, 40 years ago, 60 years ago, you could see it with your naked eye. Today a transistor is 10,000 times smaller than the hairs on some of our heads. Eyebrows. Pick a spot.
You're a little short there.
Don't brag.
I'm not far behind you.
The reason I wanted to show these companies is because they've come alongside of Coffee County, and they represent combined about $60 billion in annual revenues, just those companies. And that's important for the Department of Commerce to see, because they have a hard time believing that you can have a Taiwan miracle in Coffee County. When you've got this kind of partnership, it's sort of like an offensive line for a great quarterback. If you know something about that, it's kind of hard to last for 3 or 4 seconds without the kind of power of partnership that's required. If you go to the next slide. So this is a picture, and now we're going to talk about, okay, so where are things today? Where's Coffee County, and what are the next steps? The red dots are those dots. You'll remember Joel mentioned a preliminary memorandum of terms. It's like a term sheet. So if an investor thinks you've got some good ideas and they're threatening to give you some money, what they may do is write up a term sheet. You do this, we'll spend that. And by the way, if they spend a certain amount, they want to own a certain amount. And at this point, what I want to say is that with regard to ICS, that $10 million is a drop in the bucket compared to the amount of money that would be required to actually build the site. So there is no real ownership that's going to go to anybody in this room or in ICS. It's going to go to the investors, the private equity investors, who are going to bring in somewhere in the neighborhood of $500 million to $1 billion. That's the private money. There's going to be another $800 million that's to be raised for, this is a bond investment, and all of that payback is going to come from the operation of the facility. Now, when we talk about semiconductors, it's a cyclical business. You have good years, you have bad years. And as a result of some of the bad years, some of the best CEOs on the planet can get fired. So in spite of the fact that Intel won just under $8 billion after months, so they won their preliminary memorandum of terms, it took them 10 months to get a nickel. The term sheet just says, you're in the hunt. That's what the red dots show. Doesn't mean you're going to get money, it means that you have a chance. In order to get $1, you've got to go through a comprehensive due diligence where the applicant proves that they have not just the team, but they have all the technology and all the backing and all the relationships necessary to actually build something that hasn't been built before. So far, you'll notice that in that red ellipse, there are no dots in Kansas. That means no dot for Integra, no dot for EMP Shield. There are two paths forward for success, the way I look at it today. DOC is planning to spend all of the CHIPS money before the current administration leaves the office. That's a challenge. They got to spend about $34 billion in 6 weeks. They haven't been able to spend that kind of money since the bill was signed in August of 1922. So to spend it in 6 weeks, that's a steep hill to climb, but that's one that they want to climb. Because the concern is that if they don't spend it, things can happen as a result of just the ebb and flow of politics. So one path is that you'll notice that there is a preliminary memorandum of terms, or the PMT, but there's also the NOF. PMT doesn't mean you get money, that just means you have a piece of paper that means you're a candidate to get paid. You may not make a nickel, and by the way, if they give you a PMT, they can take it away, and you lose your opportunity, and you can't appeal. So once you get a PMT, you had better show up with the kind of proof that you can build what you proposed, and if you can't, they'll just say, well, thank you kindly, and that's the end of it. The notice of funding is really where the cash starts to flow, and if we're going to get that in 6 weeks, then there has to be a win now strategy developed. We'll talk a little bit about that later. But for the next path, failing that, let's say they don't spend all the money. If there's money left, then there is an opportunity to be able to still bring money to Coffee County with the incoming administration. And a tight coupling with that administration will be required. Let's go to the next slide. So the stuff there that's in black you saw in June, the red stuff is different, but it really paints a picture of why Coffee County is so important. So we talked about Asian leadership. 74% of the global gallium nitride comes from Asia. Only 19% comes from the U.S. And based on the plans for new manufacturing capability that have already been announced, that 19% of the U.S. may be cut in half in 2025. I was at a meeting a few weeks ago in Washington where the Secretary of the Air Force, Frank Kendall, said that China has announced that it will be attacking Taiwan in 2027. And all of if you've been reading the recent news, you've seen that since I was here just a few months ago, China has come up with a second fifth-generation stealth jet that looks a heck of a lot like our F-35s. You remember the F-35s that were in that other photo before? Okay, well theirs is a twin engine, ours is a single engine, but other than that, if you look at them on the outside, they look so identical. I wonder why that and how that happens. In any event, they are clearly preparing themselves to beat back any attempt on the part of the U.S. and its allies if it chooses to attack Taiwan. And they're watching Ukraine carefully to see just what they're going to have to do to make sure that there will be no interference. If they are able to take over that little island, again, it's about 1/6 the size of Kansas, then who owns 60% of the world's semiconductor manufacturing? They do.
If they don't blow it to pieces.
Well, that's interesting, because if they do, guess what happens to our iPhone 17? And they know that. Okay, so that means then that if you remember, one of the consequences of COVID was that because of the failure of supply chain resilience, we couldn't get a lot of semiconductors. That means you lost car manufacturing, you couldn't make equipment, you couldn't make farm equipment, you couldn't make dishwashers, etc., because the semiconductors are not available. So that's the dare. The dare is, okay, if you make us blow it up, guess what happens to the global economy? The second point is, before the plan was to do just 10,000 wafers a month, and as I indicated, we've redirected that thinking to do 20,000, and we think that if we can hit that target, we can go from 0 here in Coffee County to 28 to 47% of the #1 manufacturer of gallium nitride today on the planet. That's Innoscience in China. Innoscience is pumping out enough gallium nitride, even if they have low yield, which means that, you know, for every wafer, that every 10 wafers they may get 3 or 4 good ones. Even if they have low yield, they're getting that manufacturing experience, and they're able to make chips that they can put into all of their military applications and also their commercial applications. By 2032, we hope to go from 92,000 wafers a month up to 92,000 wafers a month, which means then that, at least in terms of the current plan, we would actually be ahead of where Innoscience is planning to be in 2025. So we think that Kansas is poised for global leadership, but being poised is kind of like a lineman that's in the stance. That doesn't mean you're going to make a block or make a tackle. You just look like you might. Next slide. So what are the risks? The #1 risk is getting access to a semiconductor process. At the time that the proposal was written, there was a relationship with an institution called IMEC. That's the Inter-University Microelectronics group out of Leuven, Belgium. We actually have some of our nuclear warheads there in Belgium. IMEC told me in March of this year, says, Carl, I don't know where you got the idea that we were going to be licensing our next generation technology to EMP Shield. Well, that's something that we had been told by the folks that had been previously leading the project. And it turns out that that was, perhaps it was a communication error. I was shocked to hear that. He also said that normally we don't interact with any customer that doesn't have the capacity to pay. EMP Shield would have had to make a $20 million payment just to run test wafers in IMEC. And the technology that IMEC was going to provide was the same technology they had already provided to Innoscience in China. So we would not only be coming in late, we'd be getting a technology that's behind what they have today. We believe that there's superior gallium nitride process prospects right here in the United States. One of them is HRL Labs. HRL stands for Hughes Research Labs. That's the lab that was established by the great Howard Hughes. That facility has gallium nitride, and they can't license it. But there again, you need to be thought to be a serious contender before they'll give you the time. The same is true for another company called NXP. That's a U.S. company. And also, finally, Intel. Intel has some of the best gallium nitride technology on the planet. The thing is that they don't plan to manufacture it because that's just not where they're making their money. They're doing silicon. So being able to license their gallium nitride technology is a prospect that could make a big difference here in Coffee County. The next risk is federal partnership risk. We've had a lot of great folks write a lot of great letters to Gina Raimondo, but there's been no issuance of a PMT, obviously. It's late, it's harmful, but it's not fatal, not yet. The thing that's interesting about the application is they haven't said no. Why not just say no? Why not just say, you know what, we don't think that Coffee County can compete with the likes of Taiwan or any of the other big folks on the planet that are doing so, and just say no. They haven't done that. They haven't done that. The next item is the factory build site preparation risk. What the heck is that? It is possible, usually if you make an investment, you have sort of like a main goal, then you want to have a fail-safe. And it turns out that there is the potential for fail-safe, where even if there is no gallium nitride manufacturing in Coffee County, you can still get a return on your investment. We're going to talk about that. The bottom line risk is that when folks commit to spending money, it's not good enough for them to keep talking about it. At some point, they got to show you the green. And so far, that has not happened. We're told that it should happen today. I expect that if I were to make a phone call, I said, yeah, Carl, if you called earlier, you would have seen that we have proof of funds, but I haven't seen that yet. Next slide. How does Coffee County maximize its relationship with the Kansas Department of Commerce in terms of economic impact? So one of the things that, thanks to the team of folks that you saw in that one of the earlier slides, was that we actually informed the governor's, lieutenant governor, that we needed $22 million. The $22 million would allow for the completion of all the design necessary to make that site developer ready. That's any developer. So any developer that wants to come to Coffee County and say, you wait a second, you mean within a 50-mile radius of where we're hoping to build that plant, the gallium nitride plant, you've got 400,000 Kansans? That's a lot of potential customers. And that could prove to be very attractive to an investor, whether they're from the U.S. or from abroad. And if the site itself is already developed, it makes it a whole lot easier for them to move into Coffee County. So that's a fail-safe path. There's one hitch. In order to string loose any additional money from the state, they want to see a PMT issued. If there's a PMT issued, they have given us a EMP Shield, a written commitment to spend $4 million. And the thing that's interesting about the PMT is, if you become one of the red dot contenders, and you know that the announcement has been made that they're going to spend all that money in 6 months? 6 weeks, I'm sorry. 6 weeks? Is it worth spending a little bit more money, this is the state, in order to reap this benefit? You see that number 3 and then the third line there? It turns out that based on the economic analysis that's already been done for the proposal that DOC is looking at right now, Kansas stands to get a $900 million windfall. That's what it's worth today. So you know how that works, right? The reason that you have a stock price is because the analysts will take a look at a company and they'll figure out, okay, how much money are you going to make? Not just revenue, but of the revenue that you make, how much do you get to keep? And they look at the money that you're keeping and they say, well, if you keep making that money into the future, this is what your company is worth today. Well, based on the revenue generation, the economic impact of this initiative, $900 million, it's what it's worth today to Kansas. That's the state and Coffee County. So then this fail-safe means that if that money is invested, because if you have a PMT, nobody's going to want to drag their feet and just say, well, we're to give up on getting the big dollars. You're looking at an excess of $1 billion that would come from the federal government for that factory. So that means then that the state would have a reason for making the investment of more money in order to push the project to a successful completion of this comprehensive due diligence. And we think that's a bet that they would take based on Kansas politics. Next slide. So this is the breakdown. You'll see that there are 2 columns, the one to the, not the one on the very left, but in the middle. This is what was presented to the state in terms of how much money they should make available. And the nice thing about that investment is, if you go from a PMT to a notice of funding, the state would get that $22 million back. They either get it back in cash or they get it back as a credit based on the investment that the state has already committed to this project. So it's a way to reduce their risk in order to get at that bigger game, in order to get a Taiwan miracle in Coffee County. On the right, it shows the investment that would be made by TEM, Trusted Electronic Materials. If there is an award, TEM would spend that $700 million. That's also what brings in all the investor money, because they see that, well, heck, if the federal government is throwing money into Kansas, we'll take that bet. And that's how the rest of the money would be raised in order to make this project real. Next slide. I think I may be over, but I'm going to try to button it up. Okay, so politics, just click the button. I think this is a build slide, so you do want to, just every time you click, you see something new. In June, this was a plan. Since June, we have actually had interaction with DOD and with the Senator's office, Senator Moran's office. If you click again, we've also had correspondence with the Senator Warner, who's now the head of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Senator Moran is the, what do you call it? He's the second in command as a result of the party breakdown.
Vice?
Yeah, exactly. In addition to that, we've gotten letters of support from the House. Jake LaTurner, Sharice Davids, and Emmanuel Cleaver, they've all written letters that went to DOC. So that DOC influence has begun. But if you ask me, I think a lot of those letters, they go to the staff sees them, and they file them. That's about it. Next slide. Next click. We'll talk a little bit more about how HUD fits in and GSA. But if you think about this DOGE, this initiative, Elon Musk's initiative to save money, we actually think that the administration is sitting on an opportunity to save the American taxpayers $250 billion based on legislation that's already passed. And we think that implementing that process is going to create demand for gallium nitride from Coffee County. If you'll click again. We've also dreamed of getting direct impact on the White House. And that's one of the things that I want to talk about in a bit more detail in a private session. If you'll go to the next slide. Okay, go to the one after that. Yes. So that's all I wanted to say. One of the reasons that I thought it would be good to have a private session is because of some of the activities that we've undertaken to try to shake loose a PMT. In order to do that, there are some relationships that we've started, some outreach that has begun to reach some decision makers in the Department of Defense and Department of Commerce. I don't want to publicize who and how, because that's the kind of thing that if it's misinterpreted, you don't want to end up harming an opportunity for Coffee County to actually make a diving catch at the end zone when there's not much time left on the clock. Intermediaries have already started making contact with members of Congress who do have direct access to the White House, we think that because of the incoming administration, we've also started the process of making contact with at least one member of the incoming cabinet. So those are all discussions that we're trying to be very sensitive about. The view is to try to leverage those relationships to see if we can't shake loose a PMT and then to get an agreement for an accelerated due diligence. We don't want to be like Intel and wait 10 months. We want to get a notice of funding in a matter of weeks. Now that's going to require leaping a lot of tall buildings in a single bound, but not out of the question. So now if you go to the previous slide, then I think Joel.
Yeah, in this slide, really, again, to recap and re-emphasize on some of the things that were presented here. Burns & McDonnell, on July 1st, we were here with you guys and we were walking through that draft development agreement. That development agreement could be executed if some conditions were met prior to that. Some of those things we worked together with Fisher Patterson and Kutak Rock and CFS, your guys' team, your consultants, was to make sure that there were some protection to Coffee County before the development agreement was executed, and that was evidence of proof of funds from the private developer, which you've heard that throughout the presentation, and we're still seeking those evidence of proof of funds. For that reason, your development agreement has not advanced. You haven't been in an ability to execute that, as well as some of the other exhibits that were provided, site plan. There was a schedule and a timeline. We conducted a gap assessment to identify roles and responsibilities and action plans, all relative to getting to an executable development agreement. And we also identified things that Coffee County can do that were more administrative things when the time is right to be prepared for that. Things like completing the entitlements for the special use permit that were relative to environmental, things that were relative to setting up a formal industrial park within Coffee County, a district, as well as the sewer district, those type of things. Now, being good stewards of Coffee County's consultants in time and energy and money, we've paused on any of those things with Fisher Patterson, Kutak Rock, and making sure that the framework is established, but the actual administrative efforts are identified and planned, but don't need to be executed until there's a better clarity and understanding on the proof of funds or evidence of funds coming soon and the ability to execute the project from the private sector side. One other thing that I just wanted to point out that we did do is put together a master plan conceptually that would be more of a marketing tool or ability to market out to other potential users or developers around an anchor of a semiconductor fab facility that could complement an industrial park, whether that be warehousing, packaging, logistics, distribution, and CFS was, put together this graphic here, and that is another option for Coffee County. As we described, you have an asset, and you have a region that, I think we collectively agree that there's opportunity and there's a need of a hub here. Now, whether that hub is anchored around a manufacturing fabrication facility for TEM, or whether that hub is pivots to more of a light industrial distribution, trucking, logistics, consumer products, packaging type development. So there are opportunities there, and again, being good stewards of your consultants and your team, we have yet to really dive into that and put that in a position that can be marketed out externally. But should that be an option that the commissioners, think that is worth doing, we could certainly, take a look at that and see what all is involved to market that out to other potential users and attract others to the KSMC Industrial Park. So with that, I'll leave it open to any questions, or dialogues until we go into a closed session with items that are tasked for that.
Well, I missed the meeting. I did watch it on YouTube from the summer when I was gone, and I mean, in my eyes, not getting a no from the DOC is still, you got a chance.
Absolutely.
So we've invested a lot of money in this, and I want to see it. I'd love to see it to the end and the award. So we can all hope and pray.
It's a significant opportunity that, I think it would be, you'd be leaving the dance early to not wait for an absolute no. It's very significant, and I think we all owe it to the investment that you've done, you've put in place to this date to either get a hard no or continue the efforts to get to try and fight for a PMT issuance, for sure.
Agreed.
I was just digging around my folder, excuse me, trying to get the initial cost projections and stuff like that, and just refresh my memory as I always do.
Gotcha.
So, questions? I don't guess I have any. We're all sitting on our hands waiting, so best we can do so far. So appreciate everybody's efforts.
Very much so.
Absolutely.
Howell and Dr. Wyatt, what can this board do to help, if anything, at this stage?
With my naive expectation that your Senator Moran is going to become the next Senate Intel chief, I'm thinking of writing a draft letter that would come from you to go to him to say, we've got to get an up or down on this. And the reasons are, you probably heard some of the public noise about, oh, we don't like the CHIPS Act, blah, blah, blah. And there are people who are, specifically calling out TSMC in Taiwan. TSMC has cut their investment in China in just the last year or so by 40%, and they've moved all those chips to the U.S. If Secretary Kendall will announce to the public that he thinks an attack is imminent, then there's good reason for TSMC doing everything it can to make sure that if China does blow it up, or we help them to blow it up, that we'll have resources here in the U.S. and won't skip a beat. Well, having said that, TSMC is not doing gallium nitride at high volume, so we still need that. The military needs it, and I think this business of, I was talking about the robots, one of the biggest areas of opportunity for humanoids is in senior health care. My wife and I cared for her mama before she went home to heaven. And even for me, I'm a pretty good-sized Negro, it was hard for me to lift her and get her to the restroom. And I couldn't tell when she needed to be there or how long she needed to be there. And so the notion of, and if you go to any of the homes, the care and the burden on the staff and the pay, it's not manageable. And one thing is certain, at least as long as we can still see each other, is that they're going to continue to have a steady stream of patients. So I think a letter to from the senator with some force that could be written today, where we did go to meet with the chief, Warren's chief of staff, and with Moran's chief of staff, and it's one of those things where he said, "Chief, nice to see you. Have a nice day," that sort of thing. But I think now is the time to say, okay, look, if you really want to execute on the CHIPS Act promise for rural America, you can't find a better example than Coffee County. And so that kind of force from the commissioners, I think, should get the senator's attention and hopefully provide some backbone stiffening where he can say, we're going to get this done. He can do that, I think. I could be wrong. But so far, he sort of had a hands-off approach to helping out here. Plus, there's also the politics between, well, does he support this or Integra, wah. Let me just tell you that I'm all good with kumbaya and, I think that this facility, I do see a path for, if you're making the chips, you'd like to get them tested and packaged and so on, and that's something that Integra could do. But I think that there's some competitors out there like Amcor that I think is on the verge of getting $400 million to run rings around what will be done here. But the point is, we need to get out of the political morass, and I think that Senator Moran is in a position here to actually drive this forward. Don't publish that.
Too late, we're on YouTube.
Yeah.
Too late.
We're live.
but I think, and the legislation makes a point of doing what needs to be done for rural America. I make them say no. Make DOC say no. If they issue the PMT, which is all the senator would ask for, and a reasonable consideration for due diligence, we've got a ton of work to do to get ready for that show. But it's something that I've got a few hairs left on my at least eyebrows, and there's some work that can be done to get us ready for a successful due diligence. If the PMT is announced, I've already reached out to Intel and had an invitation to go back to Intel. I couldn't do that because we didn't have any money. I can't just sort of walk in and say, well, would you guys consider, Coffee County? But if a PMT is issued, that's a public statement that says the federal government is considering you. And then when I go to Intel, what I say is, well, we're going to spend about $250 million on licensing gallium nitride technology. And we know that they're looking for money. So at least when I make a statement like that, it's credible. If I say it now without a PMT, it's cuckoos for Cocoa Puffs.
And I believe that credibility and issuance of a PMT, there's no coincidence that, the proof of funding and the evidence of funding has been delayed. If a PMT had been issued, I believe it's a much easier, fundraising exercise with that statement.
So, having said that, we already have a commitment from the state to make money available once the PMT happens.
Right.
So that's a pathway to saying, to heck with the investors now. I haven't had that conversation with EMP Shield, but it's a conversation that I'd like to have because it solves the problem that EMP Shield had in the beginning anyhow, and that was, gee, we don't want to spend a ton of money.
It opens up doors.
Chasing an opportunity that may evaporate. But if the state is going to make some money available, and I think there's a reason for the state to go above the entry commitment that they've already written, then you could be in the game.
Yeah, so what can Coffee County do? As much of the advocacy and lobbying and awareness and socializing of the importance of that, you know, is extremely important. Any influence to the state of Kansas would be helpful, but ultimately it's really a Kansas level initiative, and it's a regional state economic development engine, not just Burlington, Kansas, not just Coffee County. It's much larger than that, and it's not just Kansas. It's the regional interstates as well that have to gain and benefit from it. I would applaud Coffee County for being the mavericks that you guys have been so far, and making that initiative, making that investment, and having that patience for this. It is a significant opportunity, and I think you guys have done a great job at being diligent and being good stewards of the public. I would say you're doing all you can. I understand you have a tenant now in the facility that exists on your property, so you're doing things to make sure you're offsetting or generating some type of income with the asset you've already invested in. So any of those other things that you can do to do that in the interim, as well as possibly marketing to other industrial park users or other temporary or short-term, revenue-generating opportunities. Those are other things that you can look into. Aside from that, I think you guys have been really leading the effort here from the public sector side, and I think we're all very appreciative of that.
I think we mentioned a while ago, and I forget the country, where they're going to reduce their chip program, or reduce something 40%.
Oh, this is Taiwan has been pouring money, investment money, into China. Okay. They dropped that investment rate by 40% in the last year. So money that they were going to send to China, they've shut it down.
They shut that part. Now, compared to our country, what's that 40% say?
Well, one of the first things it says is that China and Taiwan is their biggest semiconductor trading partner. I think the number is around $200 billion a year of trade between the two. So what that means is that Taiwan is sending a signal, and the signal is we're not going to submit to the threat of takeover, and that we're aligning ourselves with the U.S. Now, they're investing in Europe and elsewhere, so they're not putting all of their eggs in the U.S. basket, but they're putting in tens of billions of dollars into Arizona. So for every dollar that they're going to get, I think that they're going to get something like $6.6 billion. They're putting in 5 or 10 times that of their own money.
Right. Carl, do we have a different slide deck for the closed session?
We should probably have a little chat before we go into that, but because I can fill in the blanks on that one slide that has been photographed but doesn't have all the details.
Certainly.
Dr. White, you believe that a letter needs to be drafted in support of this?
I think that, and I think there are a couple other things that could be done without, without political jeopardy.
Well put.
Do you feel there'd be a benefit not only from this board reaching out to Senator Moran because of the economic impact not only for Coffee County, but for the region, Kansas as a whole, at least the surrounding adjacent counties to Coffee County, reaching out to their boards of county commissioners and seeing if they would be interested in providing the same or similar support.
So, one of the, yes, is the short answer. One of the recommendations from Paul Hughes in the reporting to LG Toland is that he would have felt better if more of the surrounding counties had gotten involved. The problem is, that's sort of like a henny penny situation. Now we can sort of give them some numbers on why they should be involved. Whereas at the outset, it wasn't that clear. I didn't know it, right? And now that I'm more aware of what has happened in Taiwan, the notion of that kind of an engine being anchored here in Coffee County would absolutely benefit the surrounding counties.
Absolutely.
So I think that there is and I'd be happy to make a presentation or, you know, whatever you think would be helpful to sort of bring them up to speed so that they can understand why this is so important. And then what happens is that your political power and voice,
Absolutely.
especially since the reason that the legislation was bipartisan was because money was supposed to go to rural America. Well, now, you know, based on the video, at least, you can sort of anchor your understanding around something that's real, that you can see, wow, we can have something like that in Coffee County. Yeah, I think that advertising it would be a big thing.
I might add that another avenue to that type of effort would be, where we've helped on some other projects, would be with your regional planning commissions, because those are organized, they have connections to your congressional leadership at state and federal level. And so you kind of begin to build that network of your adjacent neighbors that are already formed with you in some of these organized planning commissions and things of that nature.
So yeah, so a strategy should be maybe thought through of how to reach out to the different county commissions with a schedule, who to reach when and how, and what do you want them to do? You kind of want them to, even if all they do is you write one letter and they sign off on it, then that sort of has the look and feel
Collective voice.
of a, exactly. And I don't think there are too many politicians that would ignore that.
Well, you take Saban there, he's always working with schedules, working with time frames. I mean, you do a huge amount of that. Can your firm, Saban, and I keep forgetting names, but can you work with these two gentlemen, or is that a direction we need to go, Justin?
I would say, as we've been working, I mean, to Howell's point of the presentation, you know, really much every work has stopped for several months here because of where we're kind of waiting for some of these answers. So no one's been spending the county's money at this point in time beyond the investment you've made. So that being said, we're already able to work with Burns & McDonnell. They have an excellent team of folks that we kind of can provide ground in history and support, that we worked with you and your RPCs and things like that. So, and we worked with Dr. White already as well. So I think that's a long answer. So certainly we could begin to help put together a strategy that fits what's being discussed here.
And we've to add on to that, we've engaged some of the more regional economic development organizations. Nathan Benjamin here is from our Kansas City office, and we work closely with KCADC, and So we met with them and sat down. They're very well aware of this initiative. They actually provided us with some regional data relative to demographics and economics. But to Saban's point, we have yet to really dig in, and we're being respectful to any, dollars spent and where we're spending our time. But yeah, those are the types of agencies and organizations we'd love to tap into.
So if a letter were drafted on behalf of the commission, and then we were to incorporate other counties around, what kind of time frame? I mean, I would assume that it would need to be done sooner than later, isn't that correct? Do I?
About a week or so.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, I would think that would be something that would, Dr. White said, draft a letter and have the other counties sign off on
Have to
it.
sign off, and there's like that video that I showed you, there's another one, it's like 23 minutes, but boy, it shows the plant, it shows the campus, it shows some of the cities, it shows what they're doing, over a large region. And once you see that, you're kind of like, wow, is that something that can be done in Anchorage, Kansas? And I think the answer is yes.
And I have the benefit of coming from Phoenix, Arizona, and seeing what TSMC and the Greater Phoenix Economic Council and West Maricopa County Initiatives and Commission and Phoenix Development Commission Alliance has done, and 100%. The amount of marketing and socializing and in creating the image and the vision that was put together for that and was sent out. I mean, it was incredible. Those are the type of things that we're talking about, bringing all of those agencies together, public, private, nonprofit. Those make a big difference.
So the anticipated hill you have to climb locally with other county commissions, they don't have the same information this board has, and it's a Coffee County project. So if I called, for example, Lyon County, the county to the west, would you support this? Why would we support something that is going to be based in Coffee County? And they need that information to be able to make that decision.
You're absolutely right. When we went to...
not to mention there's a very short window to accomplish it.
Totally.
Actually, so what is your relationship with Senator Moran's office? Because maybe if the pitch is made to Moran and it's articulated as something that is clearly a multi-county initiative, then can his office help to reach out to the other commissioners? I'm just sort of brainstorming, but I think that what we should do is just come up with some scenarios that could be used to get people's attention and to get the support that you need in order to come up with this letter that would be sent. You want to influence Moran, but at the same time, you want them to get engaged. Now, I don't know if you're able to talk to, I forget the name of his chief of staff now, but a lot of times these people are hard to get at. But being able to make that approach. Now, the guy that helped us the most to make progress there was Russ Carnahan at Bryan Cave. He's a former member of the House. He's well known, and he's gotten some high-level meetings for us with senators' offices and also with the White House. So maybe what we could do is on a schedule of 30 minutes within the next, today is Monday, find some time and then we could just sort of brainstorm on, okay, how do we approach? I need your feedback because you know what the obstacles are in terms of getting people to respond. And then what I would do first, though, is maybe send you a link to a video that could be shared with all the counties. Say that we're trying to do something like that. And that the thing that may help you here is, you've already made an investment. So if their answer is, well, what's in it for us? If they would like to come alongside and supplement your investment or offset your risk, why, they're more than welcome, for example. But the fact is you've made the investment, and it's obviously, yes, for Coffee County, but it's gonna help the region. And if they see that, the fact that you've made the investment may make them say, well, gee whiz, 50-mile radius, that does include a lot of those counties. There's 400,000 people in that radius, and those folks are gonna be among the people who will be able to work at your facility, get trained, you know, build well. Maybe it makes sense for them to play ball.
We've had Senator Moran here a couple of times talking about this with EMP Shield. I don't know that, I mean, if he's available, I don't know why a presentation couldn't be given to him and maybe invite the surrounding counties in, like, and do it at the gym, do it at school, do it at the 4-H building down there in Burlington, or wherever. I mean, that would be to me, that would be try to bring him in to the presentation and have yourself, all the.
More of a community outreach and open engagement,
Yeah.
you know, absolutely.
And see what this is going to, how this is going to impact, and that would give the surrounding counties also a broader view of how much it's going to benefit or hurt, whichever. I mean, there's double-edged swords, you know, but that might be a quicker way. I don't know. It all depends on Senator Moran's schedule. I do have his card somewheres. I gotta find it.
Okay, so, can we maybe chat for a couple of minutes?
Yeah, we can, I mean, we're at end of session now, we can close and, excuse us for dialogue and.
So, just the last slide, or this next slide that was shown earlier, Howell had reached out to me in advance and mentioned that there was going to be a request to go into executive session, and where Southwestern Bell, the Kansas Corporation Commission, comes from, the Kansas case when you talk about trade secrets or financial affairs of the corporation or the financial component. There's sort of an analysis that has to take place. So I sent Howell that analysis and said, as long as you're able to meet these points to go into an executive session, then that request can be made. So I believe this would be that analysis.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Because there's no intent to violate the Open Meetings Act by talking about something behind closed doors.
Right.
That should be discussed in open session, and I just want to make that clear.
Good.
So,
Absolutely.
before you go to that, I just want to mention maybe an approach that goes to get to the other counties, to get the message to the other counties. Obviously, if you're not in open session and you try to have a meeting with this board, let's say tomorrow, you can't do it unless it's a meeting like this that's open, because you violate the Open Meetings Act. So one suggestion might be to try to reach out to the chairman of each of the individual boards, and I would also maybe suggest their legal counsel and possibly their economic development director, include all of them, and maybe at a minimum see if they'd be available for a Zoom session where you could at least present the materials and go from there. And if they have further interest from there might be the opportunity to present something to their board as a whole. And I know time is ticking, and you're
Beyond ticking. I'm sorry, but I'm a little optimistic about all these things you're talking about needs to be done. Should have started 3 months ago, not 3 weeks from deadline. I mean,
Absolutely.
It's a lot of work to get done. If they're gonna spend this money before the first year, you got 2-3 weeks.
Well, before the 20th.
Before the
20.
change in
So-
administration.
Yeah, so
Okay.
so there
All
are two, yeah, and so there, and that's kind of part of what, the confidential information that, I'm prepared to share in the private session. We're looking to punch through to get a PMT for EMP Shield before the 20th, but we also have a plan for working with incoming administration if that doesn't work out. Does that make sense? And so I wanted,
So if this meeting we're talking about with other commissioners and all this contact is done, sometime shortly after the first year is sufficient then?
well, I would like to do these meetings as soon as we can build a kind of political momentum to get Senator Moran to act.
He will act after the 20th.
Well, no, he can act before.
Right,
Yeah, so what will happen is,
He could have acted already.
he could have.
And we've been trying
So
unsuccessfully.
they've been dragging their feet.
Influencing.
And the thing is that, I don't know if there was some tension because we said, okay, we need to get a letter of support from the Senate Intel Committee. And he's the co-chair. Well, he's going to become the chair.
Right.
And so that means that his star is rising. And he may feel that he's got more juice now. And that he can make a more compelling ask of Senator Warner to have the Senate Intel Committee send a letter of support.
How long do you reckon the executive session is gonna be?
10 to 15 minutes.
Oh, that short?
So they can talk about whatever they need to talk about. I recommend maybe a 10-minute break since it's
Yeah.
going for a little while.
We can shut down for a 10-minute break. Come back at 11:32.
All right, thank you.
You think 15 minutes is enough, wait on that?
20 just
I'm gonna
to
see
be
it, yeah.
sure. Oh, well, before there's a request to go into executive session, one thing that might be helpful to know is talk about PMP and then awards. Do you know off the top of your head, you and I have talked, how many PMPs have been through the due diligence process and then actually been awarded? Because I think that's important when we had talked.
Yes. There have been awards recently. Matter of fact, Carl, you may have,
Yeah.
off the top of your head, more than I.
Maybe 4. TSMC,
Right. Intel.
Intel, Polar Semiconductors out of Minnesota. They got a PFT and a notice of funding, and it happened, seems like it.
Coincidentally, or near and around the date of the National Democratic Convention.
Yeah.
You say that was Minnesota?
Yeah, right.
And did I mention Global Foundries?
Oh, Global Foundries.
Global Foundries, and I thought Micron. I have to check on that.
Micron did get awarded. I don't know if that was directly from CHIPS or another, but Micron has been awarded federal funds for their facility in New York.
So comparatively speaking, how many PMTs, if there's only 4 full awards? Because I think that's important to note right now.
Well, the PMTs that have been awarded to date, my rough guess is that of the $39 billion that was to be allocated for manufacturing, the number that's allocated today is probably $16 billion. up to 39, something like that.
And I don't know that we know how many
16 agents.
applications. We did get some communication from the CPO, the CHIPS program office. They had given us some numbers, I don't know if you recall, Carl, that there are 100 applicants, or there was more than that. There were thousands, and then there was narrowed down to 100 or so. If you have this email, you're still one of those 100 or so. I don't recall what those numbers were, but they had given us some indication.
But the number of PMTs is even smaller.
Correct.
Than that.
Correct.
And I know there's one company that has said that for now, they don't want the money, and that they're gonna be laying off some folks at one of the fabs that they were gonna build out, that sort of thing. So.
Take it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But we can try and follow up and see if we can gather some of that information and share with whatever we get.
So the information that I wanted to share is information that Burns and McDonald has not been privy to. There have been a few organizational changes that you may be aware of, and I'll talk about the reasons for that. But what I thought would be appropriate would be to just have the private session with you and myself, and have you ask some tough questions based on the information that I'm going to share that is confidential.
So to be clear, Burns and McDonald, we're going to excuse ourselves as to remind the commissioners we're the role that we're currently engaged and the tasks that have been executed for us on the private side are through ICS for pre-construction support services to develop a budget, schedule, and scope on a pro forma. So the information that will be shared from Dr. White here will be outside of that scope. So I think it's appropriate for us to step out and until we get engaged or asked to be part of that. Want to be respectful to the current scopes and contract relationships that we have right now. So I just want to make sure there's some clarity there. But we look forward to supporting all initiatives and all opportunities towards a win. So we're always here to help, and we'll just be out of the room for this portion of it.
We'll go downstairs.
Yeah, we're probably better.
We'll probably go downstairs for a little hideout, so to speak.
That's fine.
And who all do you want in there, the commission and Wade Bowie, or?
Whoever you decide, but yes, that'll be fine. Wade, the commissioners, and you make a call on your end.
So I think first, to go into an executive session, if maybe you could provide the basis why what needs to be talked about is either a trade secret or financial affairs of so that there has to be that basis in your request.
Yes. As I indicated there on the sheet, we have access through a number of intermediaries to senior federal officials who are current and one at least who will be associated with the new administration at the cabinet level. Our conversations with them are focused on supporting a PMT. The information that is involved in terms of the financial impact, there was one of the slides that I showed that mentioned HUD, that's already public, and this energy savings performance contract. That's a vehicle that was established in 2007. And that's a vehicle that set aside $80 billion for 16 companies who would have IDIQs, which is indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity type contract. That is to say, they didn't actually get a contract from the federal government, they got access to an opportunity. And the opportunity was that if they could find ways to improve the energy efficiency of federal properties, and if they could raise from the private sector the funding necessary to make those improvements, they would get paid back from savings that these ESCOs, energy services companies, would guarantee. So that in a nutshell is the purpose of the 2007 Energy Savings Performance Contract Law. As I indicated, that law was passed as a part of the Defense Appropriations Act in 2007. And of the $80 billion of opportunity since 2007, $65 billion remains unused. The federal government and the ESCOs have not found a way to put that money to work. Gallium nitride provides a pathway for all of the $65 billion to be provided 100% from the private sector. No taxpayer dollars would be spent, and that the value of the savings that would be generated from that investment, if it were all made at once, the present value of the savings is $250 billion. That's an analysis that I have done. I've done that as a result of working on at least 3 projects for a new approach to implementing energy savings performance contracts. The law allows for traditional energy enhancements. Boilers, LED lighting, chillers can be replaced, pumps, valves or variable air volume controllers, all that sort of traditional. But it turns out that if you do that kind of stuff, you can't put $80 billion to work. If you recognize that in your homes you have thermostats, those thermostats are actually part of an information technology network. You change the dial, the signal goes from the thermostat to your energy infrastructure, your air conditioners, your furnaces, etc. So if I tell you that I can come into your home and I can replace your existing energy IT infrastructure with a 5G energy management control system, you say, okay, fine. But suppose I tell you that that same system can do all of your IT, not just energy, all of your telecom, all of your datacom, all of your video, one network does that. Well, then you say, well, heck, that means that all the money that you're spending for video and telephone and IT and energy, you can essentially pay one bill and get all of those services and get a brand new infrastructure that you don't have to pay for. The only thing that you do is you say, well, if you're going to put that in my house, can you guarantee how much money that's going to save me? And I say yes. And if I meet the commitment on those guarantees, you will pay what you've been paying for a limited time only, after which you don't pay me anymore, but you still have the infrastructure, and I still am responsible for helping you to maintain it. That's the deal. That's an offer that that has been made to at least 2 federal agencies. The Trump administration, the first one, approved the deal. The Biden administration sat on it. We are in possession of documents that prove that the Trump administration, the first one, had intended to go forward with this initiative immediately after the election in 2020. It's just that the results were not what they expected. And as a result, that opportunity is sitting there, and it is exactly the kind of thing that President Trump and Elon Musk are looking for. So we have developed a financial analysis that shows how that $65 billion can be put to work. And one of the financial sources is well known to you as a part of the CHIPS Act. And it turns out that the solution that would be implemented would be a solution that would create a large demand for gallium nitride. So in terms of the, so financially, I don't know about you, but I have not done too many $65 billion initiatives recently. And I certainly have not been able to point to saving $250 billion as a result, or spending as much as $250 million a year for gallium nitride in order to put those solutions in play, not just for the federal government, but for properties across the U.S. in every state. Well, the thing that prevents this kind of project from going forward is sensitive financial and political negotiations. Some of them involve, as I mentioned, current federal officers and new ones, and the disclosure of the financials, how these savings come about, the disclosure of the personnel who are being engaged to help with the decision-making around this kind of a business initiative is what I wanted to talk about in this private session.
So this would be confidential financial data related to that subject matter?
To that, and to, there is also confidential financial matter directly relevant to the EMP Shield chips application.
And other than going into an executive session, there's no way to disseminate that without breaching that
Confidentiality and divulging of sensitive negotiations and financial details.
Spit it out, Wade.
I just wanted to make sure that it was clear what the reasons were and what the basis was of going into an executive session under the trade secrets or financial affairs of a corporation. The corporation mainly ties to the EMP chips application that ties to TEM. And previously, that has formed a similar basis to go into an executive session. If you recall, discussion of details related to the EMP chips application would jeopardize, especially talking about the financial components, would jeopardize the application with the U.S. Department of Commerce, and I think that's in the application itself. So the discussion today, my understanding of why it's sort of this long and drawn out reason why is to protect that application process and.
Right.
Well, I read it again, it was Dr. Carl Wyatt, you and the board.
Yeah.
Is that it? All these other people that's here or not?
I don't know who all you want yet. I put them there because I didn't know who you were gonna put, and I was gonna take them out.
So it's just, according to what Dr. Wyatt said, it's gonna be Dr. Wyatt, myself, and the board. Is that?
Yes.
And I don't know if I have that right, but if you read it, help correct it, if you would.
Motion to enter executive session for 20 minutes to include each of the commissioners, Dr. Carl Wyatt, County Councilor Wade Bowie, to discuss data relating financial affairs of trade secrets of corporations, partnership, trust, and individual proprietorship, and political negotiation disclosures of financial and how saving come about, and
Well, wait, and how savings,
I think we probably got it there.
something,
We can skip that.
we could just say, and disclosures of personnel.
Yeah, disclosures of personnel and financial data relative to the EMP Shield chip application and financial details that would jeopardize the application itself to protect the application process.
So after the word of, then down to the word to, I delete that, and then I'd ask you to reread it.
Okay, what, there's several there.
Trade secrets,
So take out corporations, partnership, trust, and individual
Yep.
proprietorship.
because those are all reasons you can go in, but I think we're covering it in what follows.
And then stop where?
That's a 2.
The word to, so
That.
yep, and then, I'm not sure what the SNEAS rep.
Cindy is.
That's his company.
Okay. Dr. Wyatt is a conduit of the EMP CHIPS application. So, isn't that a fair way to say that?
Fair way to say it. Yes.
So he is carrying the torch for the EMP CHIPS application.
Yes.
And I just want to make sure that's part of it too, so
Yes.
that his role and why he's,
Yeah, I have agreement with EMP.
so outside of that, I think
What are they gonna do, take our birthday away from us?
Yeah.
Move to enter executive session for 20 minutes to include each of the commissioners, Cineas, EMP CHIPS application rep, Dr. Carl White, County Councilor Wade Bowie. Second, to discuss related to financial affairs, trade secrets of EMP Shield CHIPS application and financial details that would jeopardize the application itself and to protect the application process. I will move.
I'll second it.
Moved by Knight, seconded by Hugan. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. We'll enter at 11:56 for 20 minutes.
I know. Well, we're officially waiting on.
yeah, wait.
The stranglers.
How's things at Lebo, Kansas?
Surviving.
Keeping things under control?
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Sure.
Doing what we can.
I know. I drank 12 ounces, get rid of 25.
Right. Get out of jail.
I did it for a little bit. Don't fail, maybe they won't know.
Okay.
Some of us had to take another break after the break, after the executive session.
Understand.
Especially if that's caffeine in your cup.
It's all
Oh, that's
caffeine.
a trigger for me, apparently. Guys sipping another tea.
Your body's magical. It can create from a thimbleful of tea to create a gallon of other stuff.
Okay.
Sorry, I got unavoidably
Yep,
detained
thank
on
you.
the way back.
That's okay.
You ever been unavoidably detained?
Several times in my life. Sometimes with lights flashing behind me.
I know, right?
Isn't it funny how red, white, and blue is a symbol of freedom unless it's parked behind you?
Yes, I have been detained in my life.
That's pretty good, Jay.
Could've been- could've been avoided.
remember that.
So wait, how many pounds overweight was you that night?
Self-inflicted. Self-detention. I've been lucky, I stayed on the right side of the bars. So.
Okay, we're back, Wade, I'll let you give a summary.
I'm not sure there's a summary other than what was explained for the justification and reasons to go into executive session. To discuss some of the sensitive information and financial information that was discussed in executive session would potentially compromise the application process. And until there's a no, this project is still a viable candidate for the issuance of a CMT, and I believe that's how this board and hopefully the public wants it to be. But I think it was an important overall, the update from mainly Dr. Wyatt. And I asked the question intentionally, what can be done on this end? And on this end, it sounds like reaching out to and requesting support from Senator Moran is the main thing that Coffee County can do. I would also, with permission of the board, request the ability to reach out to the attorneys for the other counties and see if they'd be willing to at least hear from either Howell and or Dr. Wyatt about why each of the counties, surrounding counties or adjacent counties should support this project as well.
Okay. I think that'd be great.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned that, maybe a person could set up a, I don't know, like a regional meeting, for the project and have either Howell or Dr. Wyatt present to give their presentation. But time is of the essence, so.
So the approach that I would take, because time is of the essence, is to at least reach out to a commissioner and maybe their legal counsel and economic development individual, and see if a Zoom meeting could be put together where a presentation, that way OL and Dr. Wyatt don't have to go to all these different counties, because I'm not sure that's
Feasible.
feasible. That's not doable in the timeline that you're talking about. And I have to say, I only mentioned counties proper, but I should also say, since we have a representative from Levo here, it might be worthwhile to try to include cities, at least the cities that could potentially be impacted. So I know you can't reach out to every single one of them, but for example, in Lyon County Commission, and then a City of Emporia representative. If it's going to be a Zoom call where it's going to be an overall update of economically what the impact of this project would be, I mean, there's power in numbers. And the counties that I had just written down and briefly mentioned to Howell was Lyon, Anderson, Osage, Woodson, Greenwood, Franklin, and I think on the far southeast corner would be Allen County would probably be impacted as well.
Let me make sure.
So I was looking at the counties that that touch, but I mean, Shawnee County could be included as well. So if you're okay with that overall approach.
Yep. I'm in favor. 150%. Yep.
And then we recently had a conversation, and I was a part of meeting with the board for the Southeast Kansas Regional Planning Commission. So I think, as somebody mentioned, they may be a good resource as well to at least bring them on. And
Saban did.
Saban. I looked over and like, that's not the person.
No, Saban.
So anything that can be done to maybe help push momentum from the ground zero, which is where we are.
Very good.
I'm all for it.
Yep, I think that'd be great. We'll
Fire the email up. Let's get them going. I was gonna save this for roundtable, but we've got the mayor of Levo here. We received a letter from the Harold Skinny Pat's Post 323 here a while back, asking for an economic development grant. Levo is a hometown of World War II Doolittle Raid hero Harold Skinny Spatz. He graduated from the high school, Levo High, in 1939 and joined the Army right after he graduated. After World War II broke out, he volunteered for the Doolittle Raid, which was the United States response to the Japanese of the bombing of Pearl Harbor. Harold was the 16th and the last B-25B to leave the flight deck of the U.S. Hornet on April 18, 1942. After the plane crashed in China, Harold and the crew of the aircraft were captured by Japanese. Harold was one of the 3 men executed by the Japanese for the bombings. In 2018, the American Legion Post Levo was rechartered as Harold Skinny Spatz Post 323 in honor of Harold Spatz's heroism, valor, and his citizenship of our town. Which kind of, you asked about the Skinny Spatz name and so on and so forth, but that kind of crossed our desk, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago from economic development. I don't think anything was done.
It was in the paper a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I forget which. but-
We didn't act on it. I don't know if we would like to act on it. I think it would be a good mark for the county, for the town. Eric, do you have any more information?
The city is actually, I don't know if it's actually leased, but we have a corner property that the city owns that it's a memorial for the veterans. We have signed over, they're running that, they're actually trying to update that. They've got a whole plan on how to make that where it represents all our veterans, and it'll be a veterans park for that, just for everybody's remembrance, those veterans that are still serving everything, so.
Have you got a veterans park now?
It was a veterans park, I don't know if it was opposite corner of the old Casey's, and it used to have just trees and a gazebo in it. They have now cleaned that off, and they're gonna completely revamp that, so they're trying to get grant funding, plus they're doing breakfast every month, they're doing all kinds of stuff to get funding to help make that nothing but a veterans park.
There's a bunch of brick there, and they tore the brick out, and then they sold the brick with inscribed, they would have veterans' names inscribed on it for the family, and so now they can relay the brick with the names of the veterans on there and the deceased.
What type of memorial are we talking about?
It's a veterans
Just a
memorial.
veterans memorial. Yep,
Just a veterans
yep.
memorial?
So dollar amount of that,
Yeah, they're looking for 50,000. It says, we envision a site that may be used for the public for visiting, events, and family gatherings, as it will be a pavilion and picnic tables on site for their use. The Legion Post has plans for using the park for Memorial Day, Independence Day, and Veterans Day, and other veteran and patriotic events on our calendar. So,
How big an area is this? Is it a couple of lots or?
1,500 square foot?
I would say maybe a little bigger than that.
Might be a little bigger than 1,500 square feet.
It'd be 30 by 50, so it's got a little size.
Yeah, it's got a good size, and it's got the main intersection site, you know.
Right.
You come into town from the north, and it's boom, it's right there. And then if you're coming in from the south, it's right before you get to the main intersection, downtown Lebo.
So has the county helped on other projects? Because I think some of the other, I know Waverly does, Ridley does have memorial sites set up. I mean,
That was probably before my time. I don't know if there's been any help with veteran parks. I mean, in my eyes, it's kind of more of an economic development or a community improvement type deal to bring people in, you know, so I don't know. Like I said, I just wanted to bring it up because it went through and we didn't take any action on it, and I wanted to bring it back up to see if there's any interest in helping towards it.
I don't remember any memorial built specifically for one World War II veteran, but, you know, this situation's gonna be leading to more memorials
Right.
built there. And I know you've got funds in your, you know, we present to you every year in the parks and in the general fund. But to me, this ought to step outside that probably.
Is funding a donation or full funding?
He's not here
part
for,
of it.
he's not here for it. I just wanted, if the mayor was here and wanted to
So
discuss.
that's your district, so to speak.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
my
If you got
district.
something in mind, then
I mean,
throw it out there.
I don't know
Yeah,
what
so
their,
it's-
I heard their numbers is somewhere in the 100,000 range of total.
I've heard that, and I've also, one of the businesses that's right next to it, their concrete wall is behind this memorial, so that's what you'll see through it. He just came to the city and we offered him a loan that he's actually gonna paint a mural with the Legion involved with that on the back side of that, of whatever they decide, Statue of Liberty, the flag. So he's gonna make his building part of that whole Veterans Memorial, so.
I don't know. Like I say, I just wanted to bring it back up.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good thing for the,
So there is a committee behind this,
It's the
Raising the funds for
Legion,
it.
it's the Legion.
it's American Legion.
Yep, yep.
Because we lost our American Legion and American Auxiliary in Leroy probably 20 years ago. There was a lot of veterans in Leroy, but it just lost sight.
Yeah, they're really building up their membership.
Yeah.
So,
We didn't want to think about it, but throw it back up. And that's what I-
yeah, like I say, I mean, we can, just wanted to bring it back up and Wade asked about it this morning, asked about the name, and so I told him. And then I had Frenchie, Clarence Fry send the letter back to Angie because we couldn't find it. So I just wanted to bring it back up and maybe we can kick it around for next week, something to do. So.
I have no trouble at all reading again, but
With the letter, anybody wants to read it.
When you read it, I believe so.
Yeah, there's more to it. I didn't read all of it. I just read the important stuff. So. Our agenda is done for the day. Roundtable. Does anybody have any roundtable?
Appreciate your, willingness to move on the fly with presentation for Burns and Mac, and Dr. Wyatt made indicated to me, I don't know, a month ago, I know I was in the car traveling somewhere, and I was on the phone with Boel, and sort of the idea of this presentation came about, and giving an update to the board, so I didn't know who was gonna show up, but I'm pleased that Dr. Wyatt came again, as well as, Boel.
Yeah, I communicated with Dr. Wyatt probably a month ago, and he told me he was going to be down here in December giving the presentation during that date. So
I couldn't remember. The only, I guess, two things. Number one, I had mentioned last week on the Maribel's building that the roof is the issue. I have the information that I need, but I have questions about the most recent part of that information to be able to see if it's comparing apples to apples, because there will be a financial request made, and it's to the point where there's enough of a difference that I want to make sure that it covers the same scope of what's requested. So I hate to put it off. I don't see, at least in the weather schedule, that we're looking at any major weather events where there's going to be a lot of rain. So I mean that's the impetus for what will likely be a request for immediate action. So I just want you to be aware that there's not an intentional delay or it's being ignored, because it's being worked on steadily behind the scenes. And then the second part of that would be unrelated, but I didn't know if you wanted to wait a week to have a further discussion regarding the economic development, or whether you wanted to request a follow-up executive session to at least have a discussion related to applicant number 5, that would sort of be a follow-up to today's meeting, or today's executive session, or wait and do that next week.
I don't know what everybody else feels, but we've been, 3 or 4 weeks, 5 weeks from the first initial interview. I feel we owe the applicant or applicants thumbs up or thumbs down.
Try to move forward.
I mean,
You know, I think we need to go ahead and have a discussion today if possible on,
you good with the discussion? Tom? Okay.
I don't think there's any question, you know, with the candidate, but we've been working on this for some time now. I don't think there's any question at all. We need to at least sit down and visit set between us.
20 minute? That's what it's set on. I'll make a motion to go in executive session for 20 minutes, the board and Counselor Bowie, to discuss non-elected personnel, interview applicant for economic development number 5, discussion regarding that individual.
I'd move.
I'll second that.
Who moved?
Moved by McCray, second by, Thompson.
I give my indulgence.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I will enter at 12:44, 20 minutes.
12:44?
Probably
not.
We are.
Been watching local and national.
Yes. Saturday
Haven't seen
night.
him more.
Just
Just
one
on lunch with him, is he done?
Oh, you,
Saturday night he won,
you can?
he won, took first place, I think 33,000, he's within 3 spots of taking the lead.
How many $1,000 is that?
About 40,000.
And you're gonna win at least one more spot.
Yeah, 1 or 2.
Probably 2.
Jesse Wright's consistently the same every time, it's the horses that really count.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you give an update?
Nope.
So,
I kept my mouth shut.
update would be, contact will be made with applicant number 5 regarding, potential contract negotiations, see if the county and this individual can come to an agreement. And then I think further discussion will occur at a subsequent meeting where that individual will be brought back in. Is that a fair summary?
Fair summary, yep. Fair summary. Roundtable.
I've already covered mine.
The only thing I've got is that, I attended the conference at Wichita last week, roughly 460 people were there. With the vendors, it was well over 500, and that entailed commissioners, clerks, appraisers, and, the thing about it is I attended the KNRC meeting, Tuesday morning, and took in a couple sessions that I was interested in, and then I went on to another session within the KAC, but it's always you get to meet a lot of other commissioners, a lot of other people, and a good dialogue, and good sessions, really. But anyway, I enjoyed that, it was well worth the time as far as I was concerned.
Good.
Just the contacts.
Mm-hmm. Names, shaking hands and introducing yourself to other people.
Yeah. And finding out that you're not unique in the problems that you're facing. I mean, it's some of the same issues come up, whether it's taxation, there's a lot of similarities.
Oh, yeah. Everybody's dealing with the same problem.
Yep. That's
No
all
one,
I
no
got.
one county is unique.
Yeah,
Everything on hand goes in this yellow folder.
okay. That's all I got.
Unless it's a very special meeting, I haven't been for one for 2 years, but see, unless it's a very, very special meeting, you get more information from other county commissioners, you do the speakers that talk.
Right.
Occasionally there'll be an excellent speaker.
Yeah, there were some good speakers, and then there were some folks that you could almost take a nap on.
Fall asleep during.
Yeah. But we had some good speakers out there.
Dawn, do you have your roundtable?
No, I do. No, I do not. Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Nothing for today, thank you.
Houston?
Can't think of something.
Angie?
The only thing I wanted to ask you was, I got an invoice, and I put it in Canva there, but I got an invoice from Kansas Natural Resource Coalition. I think that's the one out west.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still want to be a part of that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we are part of it, are we
Right,
not?
yeah, we are.
Yeah, and I don't think, I don't think the dues have changed any from,
I don't think so from last
the way it was talked to.
That's what I thought.
Right,
Okay.
right.
I just want to remember to ask you if you wanted to.
And that is a good, and that is a good coalition, because as a whole, I mean, they advocate against over-regulation, and it's a good group, and it's an advocacy group, compromise of counties, I mean, that's what supports that organization.
Yeah, I think we get a lot out of it, in my opinion, and it helps to educate people what some of these programs actually, like these 99-year conservation easements, which, in my opinion, you just will hand the deed over to them.
Yeah.
And, because it doesn't end at 99 years. And, I think they get some information out there to let people know what they're actually signing up for.
And like I say, they do advocate against over-regulation, I mean.
Right.
Which.
30 by 30 and et cetera.
Yeah, and, you know, like the reciprocal chicken, and they're finding out that there's.
Yes. Things that we think don't affect us, and it does.
Oh, that one's 8,000. I don't think I have any roundtable. I need to bring the keys to the north property in. Give them to Angie or give them away. I don't know, it's really not gonna make much difference, because I don't know if they've continued with the card lock, but I think they installed card locks on all the doors. I don't know if that was in, I don't know how that works, but.
I don't have any keys.
Okay, I've got what I haven't given out
Goes in there.
to.
Everything goes in there except, that.
This stuff doesn't, right?
I think it does, doesn't it, Tom? Everything goes in.
Yes, everything goes in that.
Okay.
The yellow clipboard, it was pretty thick.
Yeah.
Because I'm still waiting on one for library board, one for hospital, or one or two for hospital board.
And those are all, they all come up at the end of the month, right? End of the year. What do you mean appointments, with the candidates? Or with me?
Yeah, appointed board members.
So have them come in,
Well, I don't know what you want to do. Do you guys want to just appoint them to read?
I would say next week, let's have all the applicants, each one of us to have a copy. Because, I mean, we get them in acknowledgements, we sign them and send them on, and I'm sure everybody digests pretty soon, but if we all have a copy for next Monday, then we can, let's see, Monday the 16th, I think this is last one. We can decide on the 23rd.
That's it.
works for me.
Or vice versa. It's a
But if
suggestion.
you know of anyone that's currently on those boards, I don't know if you want to reach out to them, have them get an application in.
That's what we said,
If
what we
you're-
said 2 or 3 years ago.
Well-
The current applicant needs to have an application filled out.
Right, but, like, I've got, on the hospital board, for instance, there's 3, I haven't heard from 2 that are current, I have 1. And I have a new applicant that wants to be on the hospital board, so if those other 2 don't want to be on, I don't know if you guys want to reach out to them to see if they're interested or not, I don't know. I mean, we've advertised.
I'll reach out to the one that was filling the unexpired term.
So my understanding is they're still deciding.
Oh, okay.
I've run into one of them and
Is that the one filling the unexpired term?
that one, and then that turned into the conversation about one of the others. And they're still in the process of deciding with everything that's going on.
We had one come across here this morning.
Right.
That's one that's on already,
Right.
correct?
Do you guys want fresh copies of those too?
Yeah.
And, I know there's a library position that's open that, will be filling the unexpired term, but I haven't gotten anything from the one that's gonna be applying, so, but we've advertised in the paper and on online, so.
Big stack there.
Big stack here.
For second Monday. Mark, I've got a little bit of information back here. You want me to go through and go away what ain't good, or you wanna sort through it?
Whatever you want to do, it doesn't matter. Wait, sign that back later.
Okay. It'll be a lot nicer transition between Mark and Dawn.
Mm-hmm.
That time I throw something away, it'd be, that time I throw something away, it'd be something you'd want, but
I ain't leaving nothing. Yeah, you,
Yep, I gotta go, I've got a meeting at 1.
take care.
we'll see you next week.
Yep, if you need anything, let me know.
We shall.
I don't throw a lot of stuff away.
Everything signed? Yep. I just got some checks to sign here.
That sound like that. That's my wife. And as soon as it was mad, and then the retaining the fluid pushes on my valve.
Yeah.
It's like, throw it, or ground one night, she had the walking gas, they call it.
I already have them, so I'm just gonna give them to you now.
Oh, yeah,
That works.
I suppose.
Follow me on where you're going. Huh? Thank you.
If I had them handy, I thought, why not now? Why wait a week?
True that. Mucho gracias.
Then I'll have to gear. Right. Here's the folder for the rest of that stuff.
Okay,
Starting with that stuff there that Don's got.
I'm gonna put this over here, Wayne said he'd come back in a little later. Finish signing. So it looks like the two applicants on the fire board reapplying.
Yeah.
And one last thing we'll need to address is the tourism board, because we've got 2 vacant, one's up this year and Mark will be, or 2's up this year, so.
But I signed it.
so we'll need to, it's not as urgent as the others, but we'll need to sometime do something with that.
See, there's,
We got,
is Bobby still on? It's almost.
no.
This term expires next year.
So he's still on it?
Is he still on it?
Yeah.
Far as
Oh, okay.
Unless it is more than they did.
I haven't, he hasn't told me.
You,
She's purchased
So,
two
6
for
or 7
hospital,
houses, 7
three
for
are,
hospital.
three open.
right,
You know,
I don't know if that had to do with this.
fire re-open, so that's a given.
I don't even.
So you need to get
He's
the
got us.
hospital one figured out. Right?
Yeah. That's the way it sounds to me.
Got happy holidays. Kutek Rock, happy holidays. Merry Christmas. No money. No bueno.
Nephew Career, well, I mean, come and stay with us. I like to sleep down in the basement where it stays nice and dark, cool down there and get to sleep. I told his wife, I said, you know, she said, you need to get up, call Tom said, you need to get up. He goes, what, is it present? No, there's no presents, get your ass.
Is there a reason to get up, huh?
19 portions, I don't say.
He's back here.
Yes, sir.
Headed out?
Momentarily. Can't take sitting much longer.
Nope. Go on home. Get your afternoon nap in before it gets too late.
I've been taking naps. I was there for quite a while. Sort of gave up on those. I was ready to stay, the stronger I've been getting, so.
Good.
I got it.
For a little while though.
Huh?
Gotta get your feet up for a little while.
Yeah, it's not so bad now. I mean, these shoes here, I can't really tie them, but, no, I just stay moving, stay walking. They say walking's real good too.
You act like you're feeling better.
I am. I didn't put on near the weight I did last week.
Good.
You still haven't had a lot of this is the only one in here.
Yeah, last week I did.
Well, those only 2 parts is in it.
Okay.
Leaders the week before that was 7
Oh, wow.
and a half, the week before that was 9 and a half.
So you're lowering,
Yeah.
it's going down.
Good.
Meds are finally starting to even out.
Good. Are we done over there, gentlemen?
Yes, sir, you are.
Nobody else has anything? We will adjourn at 1:25. Flip the switch, we're gone.
See y'all.
Folks, see that song. Take care, Tom.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself, Tom.
Yeah.